Tonight, we continue our interviews with candidates for state representative in the 14th Suffolk District, mainly including Hyde Park, Readville, and most of Roslindale. The district's currently represented by Angelo Scaccia, who's not running for re-election. Our guest is one of the candidates trying to succeed him and running in the Democratic primary September 1st. We'd like to welcome an attorney and advocate from Hyde Park, Gretchen Van Ness. Thank you very much for being with us, Gretchen.
Chris, thank you for having me. It's great to see you again.
Gretchen, I'd like to have you tell us a little more about your background because you've been a bit of an outsider, especially as an advocate, but you've also been a bit of an insider at the State House, too.
It's true. I have been a civil rights attorney my whole life, so I've always been fighting for the people who have been left out and left behind. After I ran for office 2 years ago, came in second in our very crowded field, I was offered the position of general counsel and legislative director in the state Senate. So I was able to spend the last year and a half in the Massachusetts State Senate working closely with current leaders, taking a very deep dive into the budget, and building very strong relationships with the people on Beacon Hill. So you're right, I've had a little bit of always being on the outside, representing and doing the work I've done as an advocate and as an attorney for folks and communities that often do not have a place at the table. And I was very happy to be working with a very progressive and brilliant attorney, state senator last year, and watched her navigate all of the systems on Beacon Hill and saw where we need reform and change there as well.
Well, this is a diverse district, and as far as I can tell, candidates in the primary all have some kind of positive things to say about Black Lives Matter. But to be more specific, how does your engagement with that shape what you want to do as a legislator?
Having seen how race discrimination and inequity operates in real life throughout my career and representing people who have been harmed by that, I bring a different perspective to these issues and a different way of thinking about solving the problems presented by these issues. I'm also the only candidate in the race who has endorsed, and I endorsed first, the Massachusetts Black and Latino Caucus's 10-point plan for addressing racial inequities and police reform. And I worked really hard with the incredible group of people who are now the Ward 18 Democratic Committee. And everything that we did together in leading up to our election in this past spring is about transparency and accountability. And again, bringing people into the system and into our decision-making that have been left out in the past. So this is a proven track record of addressing these issues in a community-based way, and that's the experience I bring to the table.
One thing that you signaled support for is new limits on qualified immunity for police officers when it comes to allegations of misconduct or improper use of force. There's another candidate in the race who says, you know, that is too complicated to pass right now. It needs more study, plus it could saddle municipalities with more legal expenses. What do you say to that?
Well, a couple of different things. So first, it's important to understand that qualified immunity is a completely judge and court-made doctrine, and it has been expanded by the courts in decision after decision after decision to basically excuse virtually all misconduct and abuse. So this is not the way that the doctrine is meant to be, and because it's now established precedent in the courts, the judges have to go and are controlled by the previous decisions and the existing precedent. So the only way that we can make changes in the doctrine of qualified immunity is by passing laws at the State House. So this is why I support reform. I also believe that this is an issue that we have been discussing and known about and debated on the State House. There have been public hearings on this issue in the past, and there's no need to delay acting. We know the cases, we know there's been debate on the floor of both the House and the Senate and in committee hearings. So there's no reason to delay, and I also know from my experience at the State House that if something is sent to study, it could stay there for decades. So in this moment, when there is public support for this reform and taking bold action, we have to act. And that's why I support strong action here. And actually, municipalities and cities have nothing to worry about, because what the current doctrine does is it excuses all sorts of misconduct that no city or municipality but wants to support or is part of their training and policies. So if we can get back to where the doctor is supposed to be, municipalities will be able to invest even more in training and policies that prohibit abuse and overreach and misconduct, and then they have absolutely nothing to worry about in terms of future cases.
You're not the candidate in this race endorsed by the Boston Teachers Union, but you have endorsed the union's conditions for a safe reopening of schools. You've been very explicit about that. What do you see in that plan that you haven't seen so far from officials that run the Boston public school system or from the state?
First of all, the involvement of the teachers union itself, as well as parents and other experts. The BTU has done a lot of work with their own teachers and staff to understand the complexities that we are facing with reopening the schools. You know, every school building is different in Boston. Every classroom is different. So they have like a front row seat and understanding of how complex this issue is. So when we're talking about air circulation, for example, in a modern building that has newer air conditioning systems, that is a possibility. In older buildings where windows may or may not open, there may not be adequate air circulation. So the BTU, the plan and proposal is so strong in terms of understanding the real world circumstances and facts on the ground. And it's informed by the science and the epidemiology about this virus. While we don't know, while we don't have a vaccine, while we still don't have contact tracing or rapid testing, this is a big experiment about how to safely bring groups of people together. So I absolutely applaud the BTU in trying to bring the science together, as well as the complicated facts, as well as listening to teachers and parents about their concerns. And I will continue to support their approach.
As you know, there have been times in recent months when there were figures coming out of the district about spread of COVID-19 that were kind of troubling. I wouldn't say they're the worst in the city by any means, but did they give you pause to maybe think about ways that access to healthcare has to change?
Yes, I believe that our pandemic has exposed the weaknesses and the needs in our communities across the Commonwealth and across our communities. The fact that we still don't have a plan for how to make sure everyone who's on the front lines, and we have so many frontline essential workers as well as retail workers who live in my district, my neighbors and friends. We still don't have a dedicated program to make sure they have adequate PPE. This is yet another issue as we go looking at the restarting the schools. But I support healthcare for all. I support making sure that everyone, even if they are a gig worker or a part-time worker, has paid time off, paid leave, and adequate healthcare and support, because this pandemic is an emergency, and we want people to stay safe, to be able to be safe in their workplaces, to keep their families safe, to be able to take time off from work to care for a sick family member. And so we're seeing the need to actually, this is illustrating better than anything that I've seen, why we need to expand healthcare, workers' compensation, and unemployment, at least through until the pandemic is over, but we need to make structural changes here as well.
One note in your campaign is you're saying that this is a district that lacks some of the resources and infrastructure needed for people to thrive because of business as usual. How would a different way of doing business help get those things that you say the district needs?
We need active and involved and informed representation. It's a two-way street, so we need people at the State House who are standing up for the district and articulating what the needs are. So around public transportation, as you know, this district is blessed with an incredible state park system and state parkways, but there's a very troubled relationship between residents in the district and those parks because of the way DCR has not been able to maintain them. And in terms of public transit, we now have changes to the Fairmount line of the commuter line, so it's operated more like the T is, but we still have differences in the fare that's charged at the different stations in the district as well. So what an active, involved, and informed and courageous representative can do at the State House is continue to raise these issues again and again and again, partner with our City Council and our congressional delegation to make sure that we are getting all of the city services and support the expansion of city services as needed in our district, and continue to advocate for the public school funding, the parks funding, and the transportation funding that will serve this district better. As well, and then the other side of it is being transparent and being out in the community, sharing what goes on at the State House. So we shouldn't be making it so hard for everyone in this district to find out what's happening on Beacon Hill. And again and again and again, I hear from constituents, we don't know about anything until a vote has been taken. So we want to know sooner. And that's one of my pledges, is to make sure that we do bring that information to the community sooner.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to share that.
Thank you, Chris. It's great to be here, and I appreciate you giving time to all of the candidates in this race and all of the races. It's an incredible, important public service, especially during this pandemic. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Gretchen Van Ness, candidate for state representative in the 14th Suffolk District, mainly Hyde Park and Roslindale, and the primary is on September 1st. We'll have more news in just a moment.